Hello, this is Formula One Fans of America, Season 2, Episode 9. I am Rich, and with me I have Fabian, Jay, and Megs. We're going to start off on a little bit of a somber note, but I do want to dedicate this episode to my friend Chris Garrett. He passed away last week conducting humanitarian demining operations in Ukraine, as well as ambulance driving and medevac operations. He'd been doing so for the last 10 years, and before that was in Asia, conducting humanitarian demining operations on remnants of war left behind. Everything he did was geared towards saving people's lives. He founded a nonprofit charity that enabled him to continue his life-saving work and spent considerable time in a hostile area for the last 10 years. And unfortunately, we lost him last week. So this one goes out to him. Thank you, Chris Garrett, for everything you've done. But let's get into F1 stuff. Yeah, we will. Let's get into F1 stuff. Meg, you covered a lot of really great topics this week, so thank you. But let's jump into, I think we're going to talk about Oliver Oakes and a lot of this Alpine drama.
All right, I'm going to be saying allegedly an annoyingly amount because while I don't think they care about me, I am still way too poor to be sued. So let's get into it. Last week, very unexpectedly, Oliver Oakes resigned from Alpine, quoting personal reasons for his departure. And it came just days, I think it was days before his younger brother, William, who also works for high-tech Formula 2 team, was arrested under charges of possibly importing illegal goods into the UK. And it's speculated that he was using the F2 team to do so. It also has to do with a Russian oligarch's ties to the F2 team. Apparently before the whole Russian-Ukraine war happened and before all the sanctions were imposed, he held most of the controlling stakes in the F2 team, which was then transferred over to William Oakes. So allegedly, he's been doing some shady shit. And actually, just a couple days after Oliver Oakes resigned from Alpine, he has flown to Dubai and has not been seen since.
This is some crazy level stuff going on.
I am loving every goddamn minute of it. I would hate to be Pierre Gasly right now.
I mean, on the heels of Miami at that, which was really wild, right? And then we get this nonsense.
Oh, there's more nonsense to go too. This is only part of it.
Has Oliver Oakes
Speaking of that, you mentioned a Russian oligarch, but you didn't say his last name.
Hold on, I have it up here.
Ties there.
Nikita Mazepin.
So that was the Uralkali guy, right?
Yes. That's not an unfamiliar name in the sport of F1. That was
Gunther's guy, right?
Yes, he was the one that was funding all this stuff. And then after the kickoff of the Ukrainian conflict and sanctions imposed, they had some issues. And then there were subsequent issues with Haas that we covered later on last year. That with issues with the cars and contracts and whether or not Haas's cars could stay.
Oh, they were
going to confiscate them.
Yeah, they got
exactly because
right.
Yep. So we covered that last season. But yeah, not an unfamiliar name. So we do want to say his name there.
I just didn't remember his name and didn't think enough to write it down. But yes, his name sounds like a douchebag.
So this is really, but I mean, okay, so it's been quiet since he went to Dubai, he being Oliver.
He hasn't surfaced since, but I think the last I heard, he was evading authorities, like the UK police want to talk to him.
That's so bizarre. Wow.
It's always the quiet ones, bro.
I'm not one
That's
of
why
them.
Meg never gets in any trouble.
Never.
No, ever. Everyone knows my shit.
Fascinating. So that obviously then dovetails into the next thing on your list, right? Because we've got this surly character who, is rising from the ashes like a phoenix in Flavio Briatore.
Do not make it sound like it's so beautiful and heartfelt and that man has just overcome all of these hardships that he didn't deserve. This fucker has been set on fire 18 times and his crusty ass just keeps coming out.
Some resurrection of a demon. This is Satan coming back from hell to inflict passion upon the world of F1.
So
But,
am I
like,
the only
funny
person
thing is-
that actually enjoys it? The drama that he brings? I mean, like,
I don't
realistically here.
enjoy it. It's
And-
just like, how can this man have so many second chances and I can't even get one?
I think to answer your question,
I'll give
Jay,
you
yes,
one.
you are the only one that enjoys this drama. Like I enjoy
I'm
drama, but
talking
not
minus the
not
two
not of
big
somebody who
fucking
was so
incidents.
disgraced from the
Time out,
sport that he
time
doesn't
out,
man also
deserve
time
to
was
be.
like-
So Flavio steps into the void by making himself de facto team principal, only to find out that he really can't be recognized as the team principal.
Oh, there's many reasons he officially can't be recognized as the team principal. So the FIA recently released a statement saying that they're not going to honor his appointment as team principal because technically in the last couple of years he hasn't been an official staff member for Alpine. He's just been there under like an advisory role. So technically he doesn't work for them. And then second, he doesn't have an F1 license.
Right. So that then becomes the next part of the story, right? Which is this other guy that slides in. I don't even know his name. Is Dave Greenwald or something? Greenwood? Some guy
I didn't look
used
that
to be
up.
with Ferrari.
Allegedly.
Yes. Allegedly. So there's a guy that used to be with Ferrari. I think his name, and I don't have it in front of me. I think it's Dave Greenwood.
I don't
And
know,
he
dude.
is now going to function in the role of team principal while the FIA sorts out exactly what's going on.
You know exactly what's going to happen is he's going to be the little puppet on the strings for Briatore. Like it has been for the last however many fucking years he's been back in the sport with Alpine.
Yeah, so the guy, like, I can give you the real quick skinny. The guy's name is Dave Greenwood. Thank you, Fabian, for getting that one right for once. And he is racing director at Alpine. I think he joined them this year. Okay, but I've seen pictures of him in Ferrari colored gear from back in the day. I don't really know who the guy is. Like I don't have a pedigree on him or anything, but he's in play now, and probably, like you said, as the marionette puppet to Flavio.
Yeah, not a bad call. I think we're just going to make this one conspiracy corner episode.
Yes.
Let's talk about Christian Horner. And Jay, I'm going to kick it over to you on this one. You and Fabian hit up this possible ousting of Christian Horner at Red Bull. Fabian, we'll start with you.
So yeah, there's this concern milling about that, and this is even before the Oaks thing happened. The Oaks thing kind of was a confluence of occurrences that he got swept into the conversation of this, and obviously it wasn't what was really going on. But the people at the tops, it's being said that some of them are displeased with Horner and that there's a performance cliff that he is hanging on that could actually be at the end of the race on Sunday, possibly. And then there's another faction of information emerging out of the paddock space that says, but no, they're actually perfectly okay with him and they're going to support him. So there's these two clearly distinct stories emerging, but the one that has the most teeth, at least at the onset, was the one that he's on the cusp, and that this guy Franz Tost, is the heir apparent to Horner's job at Red Bull if Horner is ousted. And then, of course, there's a whole nother byline on that because Tost is an older guy and Red Bull favors younger folks. And so there's a big kerfuffle swirling around Red Bull right now with, is Max going to win another race? Is that going to be what saves Horner's job if it really is up for grabs? Or is it all just, blogosphere noise and Horner's fine? And the more likely scenario is that Max will leave before Horner does.
That's an interesting point about, who would leave first. And I mean, would you think that Horner's job would hinge upon Max staying even?
Mm-hmm.
Like if Max left, do you think they would move on? Yeah, go ahead and jump in here, Jake, because I think I'm going to step on to your point.
So absolutely, they would get rid of Horner if Max walked because of Horner. Like there is no questions that there's animosity between the Verstappens and Horner. So if he leaves and that car is still competitive enough, not to mention he put the clause in there to Max's contract where if Max is in at least third in the championship, then he can walk. Like, get the fuck out of here. There's no way they keep him.
Jay, is that what it was? Was it third? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He has to be third, which is why there's so much talk of Russell jumping into the Red Bull seat. Because if Russell actually performs, he's fucking himself because he'll lose his Mercedes seat. But he would turn around and end up in the Red Bull seat. Versus if he just lets Max go, he could still lose his Mercedes seat because he isn't performing well enough. Which, if they kick him for fourth, I would be really surprised at Toto for that one. But then again, maybe not, because George is kind of a whiny cunt. So, yeah. But realistically, I think Tost would be the best replacement for Horner in general. He's been through the Red Bull team for what? When did AlphaTauri get started? 2008, 2009, somewhere in there?
He's creeping up on 20 years with Red Bull. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been with Red Bull since the beginning. So, like, the only reason he left Red Bull to begin with, from the rumors I've heard, is that him and Horner had a major falling out. And he backed Marco. And Horner was like, yeah, no, you're gone. Get out of here. We don't need you. So that's where I can't remember the dude's name came in. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting thing. I would say Horner is going to have at least until summer break. I don't think it'll be after Imola, just because there's too many rule changes coming up that if they kicked him before the rule change and then something goes wrong, they have no scapegoat at that point. So it makes sense that if something goes wrong, they prove to Max that they're still 100% behind him and boot Horner off the team.
You know what's interesting too, Jay, about that? I was thinking when you brought up Russell, it triggered something for me. April 15th, 17th, the news was George Russell's about to sign a new contract with Mercedes.
And he still hasn't.
Today, George Russell has not signed a new contract with Mercedes.
Right, really? But look at what they did. Yes, look what they did with Lewis too.
Right,
Mercedes.
Yeah,
Mercedes normally does not do contracts until midsummer to summer break. They've not signed anyone early, to include Lewis. So, yeah, I don't think Russell's going to be special there. Maybe Kimmy, but who knows? So, I would say Tost is going to be the only one that's even remotely thrown around because he's been around the team so long and he has the Austrian side's backing, would be my best guess. Which, if he has the Austrian side backing, I think the tire actually even starting to back Marco now, if I'm not mistaken. So that could get real interesting really quickly.
You know,
but it also
cover. Oh, continue.
I was going to say, but it also lends a lot more credence to last year whenever Horner was trying to get a Toto deal. Now it makes a lot more sense because I think he even got told last year, like, hey, you're going to be on the hot seat.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Huh. So this Tost guy, though, is like a real deal kind of guy.
Yeah.
From what I've been able to pick up.
I mean, if you look at it, he nurtured Vettel, he nurtured Max, like Ricardo. You know, he's definitely a better team chief. And if they're looking at it from an aspect of developing younger drivers again, which with oh my god, the one that's in F2 right now, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Kid's fast as fuck though.
Arvin Lindenblad?
Yes.
You're welcome.
You figure, thank you. You figure he's going to be replacing Liam Lawson next year at the very least.
That is very likely.
Because the only reason he hasn't replaced Lawson yet is because he doesn't have enough super license points. So actually, he might be able to get it during the season. We'll see.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot going there, and it'll be very interesting to see where it goes. Although I can't see Marco being allowed to stay too much longer either. So it could be both Horner and Marco out.
A lot of
ahead,
interesting
Meg, I
changes to
interrupted your
come.
point.
Yeah. But yeah, go ahead, Bake.
When we were discussing Alpine, we also completely, because everything is just absolutely insane over there, we completely overlooked the fact that Jack Doohan has been replaced by Colapinto, and only for 5 races.
Yes.
That's 2.
It's interesting. That time in that contract. But I think that's, do you think that this is a contractual thing where it's like a test bed because they don't want to? Okay, yeah. I think that's where it's going with this is, it's like a 1-year deal for an NFL player. Let's see how this goes, because you've got questionable character history or injuries, whatever.
I find it wild though, because like Colapinto's like first couple races last year were actually pretty good.
They were good.
Before he just decided that the wall was more appealing than the actual track.
In the last 3 races.
So he actually commented on this recently. I heard an interview with him on this.
Okay, go ahead.
Where for the first couple of races, he was just told, go out and have fun. Like, we don't expect a lot out of you. Just keep the car out of the fucking wall and we're going to be ecstatic with you. And
so then they just said, hey, like, fuck the wall, go for it?
Pretty much, yeah. And then everybody started talking about Colapinto taking Perez's seat.
Wow.
And all that pressure started lopping onto him. And he's like, I just lost it. I didn't have it at that point. I wasn't ready for something like that. So interesting to say the least. But we all knew Doohan was going to be on a short leash.
Mm-hmm. But great point,
was
Megan.
right.
For bringing that up. Yeah, that is actually, we didn't even lead off with we were right. So that was our we were right moment for this episode. Good call, Jay.
We motherfucker. That was my bold prediction for the season, bitch.
Yeah. Well, you were
and
right.
I'm not. We're not even midway.
The segment is we were right, but go ahead and take all of the credit singularly to yourself. Fuck this team.
On this one, I will, because this was a.
I'm just gonna be over here with my golf clap. Just
golf clap.
Meg, I want to kick it back to you because. Oh, I'd be cursing you out and patting myself on the back. Yeah,
exactly. Fuck off.
Yeah. Meg, I want to kick it back over to you because we're going to cover one of our big topics for this episode with the crashgate controversy. And thank you for giving us content during the off week. This is awesome.
Okay, so this is going to be our first of many segments of, past events in F1 to kind of give fans who may be new to the sport a little bit of insight to why it is the way it is today. And just gives me an excuse to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. So I chose crashgate because it does tie in very well to all of the shitstorm over the past week and a half happening at Alpine. So hold on 1 second.
She's bringing up her doctorate.
We're talking about the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix and how awfully that went, unless you were a Renault driver.
No, unless you were Alonso Fernando
Alonso, yeah.
I like saying last names first because it's vaguely European.
So realistically, the only person that fucked over was Massa.
Massa.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's that was a Freudian slip worthy of another episode, but we'll get into that later.
Oh, that is a complete whole shitstorm there.
All right.
Okay, so
roll with it.
So anyway, it was the 15th race of the. Was that to me? Okay. So it was the 15th race of the season, and Renault sucked religiously. They hadn't scored any points. So it centers around drivers Fernando Alonso and Nelson Piquet Jr., who is a rookie, who is also brother to Kelly Piquet, who just had Max Verstappen's little baby. It was also the first night race of the season. Everyone was super excited about it. And at lap 12, Alonso made a pit stop for fuel and tires. And hold on 1 second. So, as I said, lap 12, Alonso made his pit stop, giving him fresh tires. And at lap 15, Piquet crashed into a wall at turn 17. And importantly, it was a part of the circuit that did not have a crane nearby. So a safety car was deployed. And in doing so, Alonso was able to get the lead during the safety car since all other cars had to stop for fuel. But the problem was, and in 2008, the safety car rule was that the pit lane was closed until all of the cars were stacked behind the safety car. So laps were going past, it was taking, a few laps to get all of the cars stacked behind the safety car, which was giving Alonso the benefit of it, because once they were all stacked, they all had to go in for pit stops, and him on fresh tires and fresh fuel was able to get into first place, and he was able to win that race. Everybody just thought it was pure luck and circumstance of the crash that allowed Alonso to win, and he got his first podium and Renault first points of the season. But it wasn't until the following year when Piquet was fired mid-season for underperforming, and he began to open his mouth and criticize his team. Soon came out that the FIA was investigating an incident with the team from the previous season, and pretty much everyone right away figured it was the Singapore Grand Prix. Basically, the Renault was charged for conspiring with a driver to deliberately cause a crash. Leaked evidence showed that Flavio Briatore and Pat Simons instructed Piquet to crash at turn 17. It was actually brought up for him to crash at that turn during the pre-race meetings. Then they decided against it. And then it wasn't until the race started that they basically told him crash at 17. A lot of people at first also didn't really think it was a conspiracy because he crashed in a similar location or at that location during free practice, I think it was. So he was already having issues on the track. But basically, Simons and Briatore left the team willingly. Renault didn't contest the charges, and they were basically put under a 2-year suspension, which means that as long as there were no similar incidences within the 2 years of that suspension, they were good to go. If they violated it, they would permanently be banned from any FIA sanctioned events. Briatore initially was giving a lifetime ban from any FIA sanctioned events. He ended up filing for an appeal. They rescinded it and then gave him 15,000 euros. Basically, they came to a settlement between Briatore and the FIA that he had to stay out of F1 until 2013, which he did. And then he came back to Alpine, apparently not as a staff member, but under an advisory role. Simons got a 5-year ban. His was overturned, and he was given 5,000 euros. And then they reached a settlement that he could not return as well until 2013. Piquet faced no charges, but he pretty much left F1 because nobody wants to employ a driver with that kind of scandals. They would basically lose all sponsorships. But he's been pretty successful in NASCAR, Formula E, and I think currently he's in stock car pro driving. And then Alonso faced no charges. It's pretty much speculated he had no knowledge of it at all. He was able to get a podium, and he, of course, still races today. I mean, that man is probably going to try it and race until he's 60.
He made a comment that he's going to race Max's daughter.
Yeah, so 60.
So that is the
that
wild.
would be hilarious.
That is really what really is fascinating to me is not only how incredible that story is,
I
right?
love it.
But then the fact that that's the PK that had Max's baby, and then the daddy PK is the one that called Lewis like a monkey or something. You know, like they are. That's a mess. That whole scene right there, like, because the dad got like slapped hard by the FIA for basically calling Lewis racially disparaging things in his native tongue.
Yeah, and acting like no one can speak Portuguese in the process.
Okay, so to be fair on this, Portuguese is highly misunderstood because you have Portugal's Portuguese and then you have Brazilian Portuguese, and the two mixing together is never pleasant.
So the difference is monkey and monkey.
No, I'm saying like the way that they form their
Not
insults,
actually
everything like that. Like
there was another thing that I was reading too, where somebody was believed to have been called a racial slur. And if it was Portuguese and not Brazilian Portuguese, yes, it would have stood as a racial slur. But when it is in Brazilian, it's like a completely unrelated thing.
Yep.
So granted, I do know that dude was being racist as hell.
oh hell, I'm not defending Piquet at all. Don't get that twisted. I'm just
Yeah, I don't
saying,
think he
like,
was
there's a
intending any
huge
compliments.
difference. Yeah, no. But I yeah. It fucked over Massey, so I'm okay with it.
I struggle with trying to understand how someone sits in a room in this environment and says, I know what we're going to do. We're going to crash into the wall.
Oh, but to be fair, he's looking at the bigger picture. Renault has not scored any points all season. He timed it perfectly by turn 17, knowing that there was no crane. Like, you completely fucked the entire race. It's borderline genius.
Yeah.
And with them scoring points and a lot, like it gave Alonso new wind in his sails.
Yeah.
He was able to drive a lot better the rest of the season,
right?
Which brings more money, more sponsors.
Yeah.
And you also kind of can test your rookie driver to see how committed he is to your team. Obviously, a little too committed. I would not try and crash into anything. If somebody's like, hey, go crash, going really fast in the wall, I would just kind of politely tell them to get fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So
but
you were saying about
go on about Massa and fuck.
I was actually going to comment on something that you said about Piquet and him not being able to be picked up by any other sponsors, anything like that. It wasn't just that. He sucked. Like, he definitely did not handle or get daddy's genes. So
just
he was like, yeah, pretty much. Nah, as far as Massa goes, that dude's a piece of fucking work. Like, holy shit. So while crashgate did not help the situation, for him losing that race, his carelessness along with Ferrari's is what really cost him that race. Because all that happened was the gas hose ripped away because he didn't wait, and Ferrari didn't get it all the way disconnected. So realistically,
I forgot about that.
That's what cost him the race. Because if I remember correctly, he actually had an amazing pit stop, like time-wise, but it was just because they didn't get the gas.
And he got hit with a penalty for that, right? I think he did. I think he got hit with a penalty because it was in unsafe, like, racing conditions for the car.
I don't know if he got a penalty for that. I'd have to really dive into that one. Or if he did, it got reversed, maybe. Probably advisable because, it's 12:30 at night here, so my memory's a little hazy. But no, now fast forward 14 years, 15 years, Massa is sitting here trying to sue the FIA based on new evidence, which this evidence was around, and he could have done this, I don't know, 15 years ago, basically, for Lewis's first championship, or second, was this his second? I can't remember. 8 was the year that Massa had the shot.
Yeah, 2008. That would have been his first.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, and this opens up a whole different ball of fuckery, because if you look at any controversial championship, in fact, one of Schumacher's, anything like that, you could have champions losing 2 to 3 championships if they would actually hold up Massa's stuff. Now, I really don't think they're going to do that because A, nobody liked Massa to begin with, and B, why bother? It's not going to do anything. He's not going to get back the money lost for 14 years of not being a champion. So why bother? Realistically, like, all you're going to do is...
Well, he did. I just looked it up. He did get a 10-second time penalty for unsafe exiting of the pit lane because of the gas hose. So, like, I could understand really wanting to appeal it if you had like that perfect race, you had perfect pit stops, you stayed on the racing line, was making amazing times, and that crash and that manipulation cost you your championship. But it was your own stupid fuckery.
Well, no, I agree with you 100%. I think I have 2 thoughts on this. One is very self-serving and one is just an observation of fact. Massa himself last year in 24 expressly said that his beef is not with Lewis, clearly. Like, he's like, that is not his fault. He had nothing to do with it. He just wants to be recognized as the champion. So my solution to the problem is really simple. It's really simple.
Get back in the car and win one.
Make them co-champions. And make Lewis and Max co-champions. In all of
So Lewis would still have 7 championships?
No, he would have his 8th.
No, he would only have 7 because half a championship and half a championship is only 1.
Co is not half.
Wait,
I didn't say split.
hold on. I thought, though, that in terms of math, if you get to 0.5, you have to round up.
Yeah.
I would say half a championship is still half a championship.
No, it's co, not half.
Rich, do you want to weigh in on this one? Co-champion is a half a champion.
I said the solution to the Massa thing is simply to make them co-champions.
I would say it's a full, you still counted as you were champion that year, so it would be his 8th, but yeah. Sorry. We all side against you, and if we are going by conventional math logic and rules, you would round up.
Fuck your math.
I knew I would do something that would give Jay a little tweak just for a moment.
Co-champions is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I don't even agree with
that's
it. So
literally like
that's
giving
where
participation trophies. I hate all of it.
You got me.
I don't like it either. I'm with you on that, Meg. Like, I think co-champions is a dumb thing. There's no such thing in sports, in my opinion. And it should not exist. Like, ties don't exist in Formula One for an exact fucking reason, and there's exhaustive rules to how to prevent a tie from happening in Formula One. Fabian, you had a really good, well-written piece about Williams and teams tied to Mercedes, but specifically Williams, that I wanted you to get into a little bit, please.
Sure. No, I we've talked over the last few episodes about Williams every single time because Williams is actually doing some stuff. And it really is, we've all agreed, it's really fun to see, right? It's fun to watch. And it dawned on me, I do all this writing always late in the evening, typically, and in my quiet time. And it dawned on me something about just James Vowles and what he's brought to Williams. And I was thinking about how, he comes out of this Mercedes school of thought, right? He comes from the Toto Wolff realm of team principling. And then he has his own personality and affect. And you take that tutelage that he's gotten from Toto and Mercedes, and that's a winning environment, and you combine that with James' natural persona and his instinctive characteristics, and it makes his weekend debriefings so entertaining to watch because he's deliberately in front of the camera, looking into the eyes of the fans, telling them very unapologetically and transparently what's going on or what happened. And it's not like he's got to sell it because you're there for it. Like you buy it, you know, he's really being honest about what's going on. And I think that's giving Williams a very interesting injection of energy and interest that he is figuring out how to parlay that into performance. You know, we've seen Alex Albon, you know, just turn it around from the last couple of years and really be, you know, what he expects of himself on track. You know, we see Carlos making incremental strides, working through the shift in the power, you know, units and learning how to work with the car, which is different than the Ferrari. And just the whole thing is just so interesting. And it's really driven, I believe, by this Mercedes DNA that Val's brought with him. I really believe that. And when you look at all the other team principles and stories going on outside of Toto, because he's kind of where he merged from, right? You can kind of see what I'm talking about. You know, they all have different styles and they all have different ways that they do things. Some of them don't even get involved with talking to the fans about what went on or why did he cross this guy at that time. But he breaks it down to the point. It's like, look, we didn't communicate well. We said two things. Neither of them were formed well enough for our guys to know exactly what they should or should not do. That's not on them. It's on us. And we're making sure we're not going to ever do that again. It's way different than what's coming out of Ferrari, you know, in terms of what's happening on their pit wall. And so I just, you know, I wrote that piece for not only for diehard Williams fans, just to give them, you know, some insight and perspective, which is kind of like what we do with our editorial stuff, but also just to give Vowles and the team, you know, a pat on the back and say, you guys are doing it right, you know, in terms of just the way you're presenting yourselves, the way you're handling the aftermath of a weekend. Their formula is very good for that.
Absolutely. And I do think it's, you know, because we do enjoy talking shit about F1 drivers and teams and pointing out other people's mistakes, it's very important to stay neutral and give kudos and feedback where credit is due as well. And so, yeah, definitely would love to see more success coming out of Williams. I love this resurgence. I do think that there's a legit possibility that they could be the fourth place team on the grid this year if things continue.
Yeah.
I also concur fully with your analysis where this comes from a lot of Mercedes fallout in that, you know, decade of prominence from Mercedes where they just did every single thing right possibly. And they had the good drivers and good team strategy, good engineers, good pit crew. Just everything was going the way that it was for Red Bull for the last 3 years, but not so much
and
anymore.
He, you know, he has such a great attention to detail. I remember back to a clip that shows up a lot on TikTok and Instagram where they're talking to Toto about giving Lewis the 2-stop variant of what they were going to do. And they were literally, and it was about Verstappen, if I remember correctly. And they're like, Toto, we're gonna look at this 2-stop. And he's like, well, tell me about it. And Vowles is the guy breaking it down. He's like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. His tires are here, Lewis's will be there. And if this goes the way we expect it to go, he should be able to make up this deficit. And when it happened, it was a 22-second deficit. And down to the last lap, it happened. And Lewis got ahead of Max in that particular race. And I reflected on the fact that that was Vowles also. And so it's this attention to detail and just his very methodical way of thinking. He's not a very emotional guy, you know, when it comes to the analysis side of what went on when they have issues or problems, you know. He's fascinating. He's definitely one of my favorite team principals that are out there now.
Well, it's because you're saying he's not such an emotional guy that he's calculated and willing and able to take such high risks where you can try to calculate a 22-second deficit. That's an eternity in F1 racing.
Yeah.
So to take that large of a risk is, it says a lot about your strategy and who you are. Definitely
Absolutely.
About the emotional control.
Yeah. So
let's get back into well, Meg and Jay, did you have anything on that stuff with the Williams and Vowles?
No, I'm just enjoying the ride.
Jay, I do want to kick it back over to you for and you and Meg for Conspiracy Corner, because we've got some McLaren stuff this week that we want to talk about. And our resident McLaren fan has some opinions. Jay, I know you have some too. So let's go ahead and jump into this. There's some wonky issues with Yes, allegedly there's some braking issues and possibly aero issues with McLaren this season. So let's talk about it.
So I've been saying that I think McLaren's fucked once the wing regulations come into effect. I mean, we all have seen how bad that wing actually bends. I think some of that is affecting brake cooling as well, for at least the front. But all of the thermal imagery that we've been seeing, I know Red Bull posted it up, last weekend, Meg?
Yeah.
You could literally see the blue inside of the thermal imaging, where everybody else is like red hot, and there's McLaren like they just put on a fresh pair of tires. There was also a race where Piastri and Norris both, their tires looked almost like 3 laps old, basically, instead of beat the hell and back with all the rubber coming back from the track, everything like that. So something's going on. Right now, there was a guy who used to work for McLaren and got his thesis published, or did he get his doctorate through it? I can't remember.
He did his doctorate thesis on his like work in McLaren. I believe
Okay.
is what it was.
So
Buchanan is
his
his
thing
name.
was,
His name is
Yes.
James Buchanan.
Buchanan? Okay.
Yeah, James Buchanan.
right. So what he's saying is that McLaren is using a type of phase changing material. Now, from what I'm reading from other sources, is the carbon weave that they're using is extremely special to that car right now. No one else has the technology. But if it basically is still phase changing, or they find anything wrong with it, McLaren could literally lose everything that they've done this season, because those brakes have been on there. I remember, I think it was the first race in Australia, whenever we saw the actual brake ducts with all the channels different and everything like that. And me and you, Rich, were talking about it, where like, holy shit, that's fucking different. But there's a lot going on with those back brakes. And if it's got more ventilation than allowed by the regulations, or whenever it heats up, it expands and allows more air to go through them, which is what I think Buchanan's saying is happening now, that turns it into a phase-changing material. Once that happens, you are in direct violation with the FIA, and you have to change that part immediately, which, if McLaren's basing a lot of their car around this, then there's going to be a lot of problems real soon for them. But also, you're looking at fines, you're looking at drivers losing points, you're looking at team loss of points. Like, there's a ton that could possibly go wrong here for McLaren. Now, granted, I don't like McLaren, but I will say this now. If they actually invented something that is doing this to tires, A, it's amazing, but B, it should be banned immediately. Like, no questions. And the reason why is Pirelli is working their ass off to actively try to make tires degrade faster, to incorporate strategies, to incorporate extra pit stops, everything like that. Like the C6, I think it is this year, was brought so that teams would have to use such a soft compound that they would have to do another pit stop. So if you have a team actively working against this, then it shouldn't be, because you're literally just preserving the tires so much that no matter what any other team does, or not any other team, but any tire manufacturer does to try to make the race more exciting or anything like that, it negates it. And we talked about this last year. The FIA wants most of these teams to create super teams, so that way, even if one car does get ahead, they still have racing to happen and have people excited to still watch the sport and everything. Lewis and Charles is one. And that was the big one that I saw. I know Sainz and Albon wasn't like that anticipated, but it's actually proving to be pretty nice. Gasly and Ocon last year was actually really good to watch. So I can see where the FIA is going with this, and that's why I think they'll ban it, is because you're essentially taking out every other team. And with Cadillac and Audi both coming in, they could both walk out just as easy. So, Meg, where are you at on that?
I have nothing to say until the FIA comes back and says whether it's illegal or not. And if it's legal,
Okay, Zach.
I'm with
Right now,
Meg
it
on-
seems like
I'm with
yeah.
Meg
Right
on
now,
that.
it seems like where there's smoke, there's fire, and it does seem like there is some chicanery happening with this car, and it may not necessarily be legal. It would be very disappointing, especially for these drivers, mainly Piastri.
Yeah.
hate to
I would
see
be
him lose.
heartbroken if it's illegal.
Hold up. I
Yeah,
just
it
thought of
would suck.
something here. So McLaren's already underneath enough shit with the bendy wings, and they picked
the
up
front wing.
and the back wing actually. They picked up the guy from Red Bull who was all about bending parts, basically. I can't remember his name. It's like Rob something. But he tried to bring in a lot of what he's doing at McLaren now to Red Bull, and Red Bull was even like, dude, no, this is some sketch shit right here. What if they're using that same technology? Like, if this carbon weave is used in their wings and that's why they're able to bend the way they do under force, if that's the same thing their brake channels are made out of. Because if that's the case, then that whole car is illegal. That's not just one part of it. That is an entire car illegal. Because you're not allowed to
It'll be very interesting.
Yeah, I don't think you're allowed to use phase-changing materials at all on a car now.
Not that I'm aware of. No, I don't believe you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be awful if that was the case. And, just how, I mean, it's hard to argue that, like, McLaren's resurgence to dominance, doesn't have something questionable about it, Let's go ahead and get into Imola predictions, and then we'll, I think, wrap it up.
Let me go first because I have to jump off.
Yep, go for it.
Okay. Crap, my thing just closed. Hold up.
All right, well, I got yours. You have Piastri, Lando, Leclerc, Kimi, and Max.
Yes.
I have it in a different order. I have Piastri, Lando, Kimi on the podium, Max, Leclerc. I just think that that's the way the podium is going to shape out. But, these are our top 5 predictions. So any combination of these, we're winners.
Piastri, Kimi,
we're in agreement.
Leclerc for me.
Yep. See you guys
Piastri,
next
Kimi,
week.
Leclerc. So top 5. Go ahead. Take care, mate.
Yep, Piastri, Kimi, Leclerc. You want a 5, top 5. Piastri,
Yep,
Kimi,
top 5.
Leclerc. Oh, definitely Max and Lando.
Max and Lando. Okay.
Yeah.
Jay, what do you got?
Mute it. Say it again. Still muted. Say it again. I think he lost mic connectivity.
Anyways, I want to see Oscar and fucking Lando take each other the fuck out. Was it Imola or was it Monza last year where Oscar did that dirty pass?
That was the chicane on the first, after the first turn. That would have been,
Was that Monza? I want to say it might have been Monza.
no, that's not Monza because Monza doesn't have that layout. Hold on. I'm looking at Monza right now. Oh, yeah. Wait. Yes, it was Monza.
Oh,
was
okay,
it.
damn it. Because I wanted to see
In the middle
Piastri
of
try to go
long
for
ass
that.
straight, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to see Piastri try to go for that again and Lando just be like, no, bitch. But anyways. So
No, what's going to happen is Oscar will be on pole. Lando will try to go for it, and Oscar will be like, no, bitch.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Orange car or papaya car hits papaya car. I'm
Versus
okay
papaya.
with it.
Yeah.
Anyways, I still don't have any faith in Lando with this car. I really don't. He is not comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Like he's
Agreed.
starting further and further back every time now. So he was what? He had 3rd, 4th, and 9th, I believe it was so far in a row. And he's had to work his way back up through the crowd. So I hate this because of the upgrades that came in. I really don't like this. But I'm going to say, now mind you, I don't do podium. I don't do any of that bullshit because it's fucking pointless because every car has a chance to win now. I would say Charles, Oscar, Max, Kimmy. I'm still going to hope and pray for Yuki to get up there.
That's fair. That's fair.
No, I like it.
I'd like to see you get something.
I would love it too. He's having one of his best years in the sport, so it's all possible for him. He's certainly pushing himself and giving max effort. So I love it. There's a little double entendre, max effort. You watch Deadpool and Max's effort.
Maximum effort.
All right. Well, great episode this week, guys. We've got Imola coming up, so it's going to be an exciting weekend, and we will reconvene and rejoin you all next week. This is
guys, is this
America?
This is a triple header?
We are.
Yes.
We're kicking off a triple header now, so yeah, we're going to be very busy in the coming weeks.
Cool. You know,
we'll see you all next week. This has been season 2, episode 9 of Formula One Fans of America. Take care.
Peace out.